It's one of the more impressive pushes from the Greens I've seen in recent times. Some might argue they are few and far between. But that aside, Lidia Thorpe's proposal for an inquiry into concussion and head trauma in sport received unanimous support. I hosted rugby league for nearly a decade and worked with a number of retired legends, many of whom spoke publicly, not that often, but more so privately about their fears relating to damage done by repeated head knocks. Former England international and Bulldogs captain James Graham was as tough as they came. He wore the brutality he dispersed and was subjected to as a badge of honour. I wonder, in hindsight, whether he still feels the same way. He joins me now. James, so lovely to see you. First of all, how are you?
Yeah, going very well. Thanks, Erin. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's great to see you. Tell me, do you still look back with pride on a career given what you know now?
Yeah, look, rugby league has given me so much. Our sport has given me a great life, and I'm very grateful for the opportunities that it gave me, and also looking like it will continue to give me as well. So I'm very grateful. Obviously now I'm in a position where I need to look at my long-term health due to the fact what I've been subjected to playing our sport. So I'm really trying to take responsibility. I'm not perfect by any stretch, but I'm trying to make some decisions that's going to help my my cognitive abilities into the future.
Yeah, you're not alone there and not being perfect, absolutely. You've had neurological tests that have confirmed permanent damage and I think a shrinkage in volume. What was it like to hear that as you've a dad of two beautiful little girls, a husband? How does that feel?
Yeah, look, I went into that and deep down, I knew I would have paid a price for playing the way I did and for as long as I did as well. So I wasn't shocked by that. For me, I'd rather know than not know. I was never going to plead ignorance through this. I want to be informed of that information and ultimately try and take as much responsibility as I can moving forward for my health. And now I've got to shift that health or that long-term health up the priority list.
You reckon you've had about 100 concussions, which is so hard to fathom. At what stage in your career, and it was such a distinguished, incredible career, did you start to realise that you weren't recovering as quickly, and whether that be physically, mentally? Was there a moment where it started to get harder?
Look, I think in terms of any concussion that I had recovering from it, that pretty much stayed consistent throughout the career. But as I got towards the back end of it, I certainly was more acutely aware of the effects, and I would not put myself in certain situations that I thought a concussion or a big collision was more likely. So it certainly affected how I approached the game. And sometimes, or at least in the build-up, and then when I was actually playing, sometimes I just couldn't help myself.
Yeah, it didn't look like you were stopping yourself at all in many moments there. It's so hard because even, all the guys that I used to work with, they would say, well, this is my career. Look at the job I'm doing now. My ability to earn a living for my family. I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. What do you say to that kind of attitude? And does that attitude still exist in players? And is it fair enough?
Look, I understand that attitude. I get it. That was me yesteryear. So I think that attitude to some extent does exist, but I think what we're starting to see at the moment is a slight culture change, a change in understanding, certainly a change in awareness and some of the long-term consequences for people's health. And we've seen that with some devastating news recently here in Australia, the stories from America and whatnot. So I think there's certainly more awareness, and I think the culture is starting to shift on how we approach these concussions. It's not worn like a badge of honour like it once was, and I think that culture shift has really got to happen in the youth leagues as well. Where it's in rugby league especially, and a lot of contact sports, it's never show you hurt, and you always continue on. You'd only stop at the most severe injuries. Maybe that needs to keep on changing a little bit more.
You were doing a lot to change that culture. You did the podcast Head Noise, which was absolutely brilliant. You can listen to you on radio, watch you on TV as well. What do you want to come out of this inquiry? What still needs to change in professional sport?
Yeah, look, so I think that there's three aspects of it. I think we look at how our children play sport, because let's not forget there's so many benefits for team sport, for the individual, the community and society in general. So let's not we don't want to stop these team sports, or these collision sports, but what we can do is perhaps make them safer. Now, these issues would be very complex. We know that parents get very competitive and always look for a competitive edge. So there's that to look at. I think we've got to look at how our current athletes deal with concussion on medical suspensions and things like that, and more awareness. But we've got what I'd really like to see, because we've got this huge cohort of players that have already, what's done is done. They've come out of the game, and unfortunately, a lot of them don't know where to turn to. They feel lost. They feel cut off. They don't know how to get access to medical services. A lot of them, as a player, as a professional athlete, your treatment for any medical issue is absolutely first class. And we never want to take that away. But then the day you retire, it completely changes. Yeah. So I'd like to see that cohort of people be looked after and given a place to go to, and know that they do care, and that the game does care, because they've dug the well. And I think it's a great way to honour the past. An annual brain, body and mind checkup is something that we're going to advocate for. And I think it's important for any of those individuals to know that it's not too late to make positive changes, because when we hear stories like this, it can become that self-fulfilling prophecy of, oh, well, I played contact sport for 10 years, then I've got no chance. Yeah. So but it doesn't need to be that way, because there are actionable things and choices you can make in your life now to actually maybe not completely stop the decline, but at least put the brakes on it. And there's some decisions that you can make that hit the accelerator on that cognitive decline as well. So it's really important that we educate our former athletes that it's not too late to make some changes, and give them the support that in my belief, they've earned.
Yeah, look, there was also a belief in rugby league back in the day that forwards weren't that bright, but I think you're changing the culture on that as well.
Yeah, that's good.
Brilliantly said, James Graham. Thank you for your advocacy in this area and for joining me tonight.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much.